It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
Phone number, as always, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And I've got a lot to get to in this hour of the radio broadcast. If you want to text in, you don't want to call in, you can text in, 615-737-9986. I do have some great audio coming up from Senator John Kennedy out of Louisiana, but I've got to do this. Listen to this headline. Kamala Harris suggests that criticizing her distinctive cackle is sexist as she gives dating advice for young women. Now, we all remember the Kamala cackle. I don't have it handy, but we all know that she has a rather unfortunate laugh. There's no other way to put it. I mean, everybody who listens to talk radio knows how Kamala Harris laughs. So this is from the New York Post. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is now suggesting that mockery over her boisterous cackle is sexist as she doled out dating advice for young women. During an appearance on the Rich Little Broke Girls podcast, the former Veep recalled being asked by a reporter about criticisms of her lacking humility. Now, if I had more time to prepare this segment, I could do a whole thing on it, but I'm just from memory. Do you remember a few weeks ago now, she was on some sort of a thing somewhere, and she said, some people said that I was the most qualified presidential candidate ever. Remember that? She was up on stage. And I remember I lost my ever-loving mind when I heard that, because it's like, do you even hear yourself? So if somebody said, which, by the way, I disagreed, but if somebody said that you were, and she obviously agreed, if you believe that you were the most qualified presidential candidate ever, and you still lost, that shows you how bad you were at running a campaign, how bad you were at messaging, and how horrible you were at connecting with people. And let's also not forget that you spent millions and millions of dollars. You ended up in debt. Your campaign ended up in debt, and you lost. You lost. So if there's anyone who should be lacking an ego, it is Kamala Harris, because of her constant failures. But anyway, this is what she said. Because apparently she does have quite an ego, if I'm following the story closely. She says, I don't aspire to be humble. Humility, yes, is very important. But she says it's a very dated perspective on who women should be. To say that women should be humble, women should be quiet, women should laugh quietly, she said as she covered her mouth and raised her eyebrows. Well, let me just tackle that. And I don't have the audio. Usually, if I had more time, I'd find the audio, but I'm just telling you what she said. So I don't think is it a dated perspective that women should be humble? Isn't that part of just being a good person, is being humble? Not having an overinflated ego? I'm not even talking about, because, there's some people who have accomplished incredibly great things, and they have a reason not to be humble. But Kamala Harris, in my opinion, she was an absolute epic failure as a vice president and also as a presidential candidate. But I think that being humble is certainly not a dated perspective. It's just part of being a good human being. Memo to Kamala Harris. Nobody likes a blowhard. Nobody is saying, by the way, that women should be quiet. Nobody is saying that. Nobody is saying that women should laugh quietly. People are saying that you have a silly cackle. That's what they're saying. And by the way, you spent how long calling Donald Trump a white supremacist and a Nazi? So I don't really give a crap what you think you should be called or what people should say about you or anybody. Because you and your party have built not one, but two presidential campaigns on Donald Trump being akin to Hitler and his supporters being Nazis and white supremacists. So I don't really care what you have to say, Kamala Harris. She goes on to say that it is a dated concept that women should not have a sense of humor and women should not raise their voice. She continued, I've never felt burdened by those very dated and I think out of touch standards. Nobody's saying that. I mean, I love women who have a sense of humor. So basically it seems like what she's trying to do, and I'm just spitballing here, but it seems like what she's trying to do is she's trying to deflect on a very specific criticism about the way that she laughs. And by the way, people have said for a long time that her personality and her lack of likability have been negatives out on the campaign trail. She has a hard time connecting with people. And so basically what she's trying to say is that these dated concepts, and I'm air quoting that women should not have a sense of humor and should not raise their voice. And what was the other? Women should laugh quietly. Nobody's saying that. Literally nobody is saying that. They're saying that you were a bad candidate because you had a weird laugh, you had a hard time connecting with people, and you have a personality that basically prevents people from liking you. That's what the problem is. During her 107 days as the Democratic presidential standard bearer, Harris largely refrained from broaching identity politics or complaining about sexism. Despite being the first female VP in U.S. history and the second female presidential candidate of a major political party, she actively made a point of not harping on identity politics. I don't know if is that true? I mean, this is the New York Post, but I seem to recall Kamala Harris, getting a little spicy with the accusations of sexism and all that. I mean, she did. I mean, it wasn't at the forefront, but, I mean, she was trying to, here's the funny thing. She was trying to run on a record that was terrible. That's why she didn't win. I mean, she didn't win because of a lot of reasons. But anyway, the story continues. That stood in stark contrast to Hillary Clinton, who wasn't shy about publicly crowing about how her voters put the biggest crack in that glass ceiling and groused about different societal standards for women. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe there is. Maybe I'm just, one of those horrifying Christian white males that, just doesn't see these things. But I don't think so. I think we are equal opportunity offenders in America today. And if women wanted to be treated equal, if people of color wanted to be treated equal, then we are allowed to criticize them for their policies, for their personalities, how they present themselves, because all of that matters in politics. Whether you are Kamala Harris, whether you are Barack Obama, whether you are Donald Trump. The one thing you can say about Donald Trump, man, he is honest. Some could say honest to a fault. During this wide-ranging podcast interview, Harris also gave dating advice to young women. Oh, my Lord. So I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm reading this for the first time, which is something I don't necessarily like doing because that gets me in trouble. But do I really want to do this? So she gives dating advice to young single women in which she stressed the importance of finding someone who is kind. Like the former mayor of San Francisco. Now this is me talking. So the Kamala Harris, how she got involved in politics, right? I'm Googling it right now. Mayor Kamala Harris, Willie Brown. So when Kamala Harris was starting in her political career, she got involved with the very married San Francisco mayor, Willie Brown. People say it was a torrid affair. He, of course, then turned around and got her involved in politics by introducing her to the right people, introducing her to, donors and the like. So I don't know if she's the right person to be giving advice about how to date. What's her husband's name? Doug? Let's see. Kamala Harris's husband, what is his name? Dougie? Doug Emhoff. Then, of course, you have Doug Emhoff. Now, let's not forget that Doug Emhoff had his own issues when he was, previous. Had an affair with the nanny, knocked her up. Remember that whole thing? Kamala Harris married him. Remember the accusations about where he hit an ex-girlfriend? So when Kamala Harris, I shouldn't do, I sound so petty. But, when Kamala Harris is, doling out dating advice, that's right up there with getting advice from Hillary Clinton, who married Bill Clinton. Serial philanderer that he is, Bill Clinton. Hey, Hillary, please give us advice on how to find a good man. Okay. Let's see here. She also goes on to say, choose to be with someone who allows you to laugh at yourself and them, she said. Choose to be with someone who you like, going to the grocery store together, now that's true. Anyway, so she goes on with Doug Emhoff. Whatever. Anyway, I don't think that it is sexist to make fun of Kamala Harris's Cackle. I don't believe that it is sexist to make fun of a woman, how she presents herself, because all of this matters. And by the way, how long have they been talking about how Donald Trump is, orange and all that kind of stuff? So Kamala Harris has... she has about as much credibility. She doesn't have any credibility. She has no credibility at all in this. But you know what? Word is she's going to run for president yet again. So we'll get to hear that cackle a lot more in the years ahead. The phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Got a lot more straight ahead.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Smart owner-operators make every single week as profitable as possible. One trip is not enough time to be considered profitable or unprofitable, and an entire month may be too much time to manage. 1 week is the right amount of time to deal with efficiently. To do so, look at the advantages and disadvantages of every day of the week. Match trip length to the optimum day of the week. Plan to deliver on the day you have the best opportunity of getting a load. Your personal weekly plan will vary depending on the weekly delivery flow cycle of your region, typical length of haul, personal requirements, and other factors. What's important is to have a specific weekly plan that helps you be successful. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio, 86690 Red Eye. So we've had a lot of Epstein drops over the last several days. So there was one yesterday. Few highlights. Lots and lots of Bill Clinton photos. He's in a hot tub with women. He's got a blonde sitting on his lap. He and Epstein together in weird coordinated shirts. And, you know, you got to just wonder with Bill Clinton. I believe that he knew that there was stuff going on. Whether or not he partook is anybody's guess, who knows. But just as a married guy, can I just say this? As a married guy and a former president at the time, why are you allowing yourself to be photographed with a blonde sitting on your lap, whether she's underage or of age? Why would you do that? I mean, granted, his wife is Hillary Clinton, but I mean, come on, man. You got to be smarter than that. The thing about Bill Clinton, he was so brazen. When there's this story of Epstein and Bill Clinton and the accusation that there were younger girls involved with these older, powerful men, and you understand, serial cheater Bill Clinton, it kind of tracks. No, I don't have any proof that Bill Clinton did anything, and neither do you, but he's just not very smart. I mean, number one, he married Hillary Clinton, and number two, he allows himself to be photographed in swimming pools with, strange women or girls, whatever. You also had a lot of photographs of Donald Trump that were totally innocent in the latest drop. You have flight logs showing that Donald Trump was on Epstein's plane over the years. But again, there's nothing that is, if you will, a smoking gun that shows, clearly Bill Clinton did this. Clearly Donald Trump did this. I think there's more evidence that Donald Trump did nothing than he did something. I mean, obviously. I'm not telling you anything that most of you don't already know. But one of the interesting things is that there is an email where they talk about these 10 co-conspirators that were apparently identified back in 2019. Now, they're all, of course, redacted, but there's a conversation that I'm gonna play for you coming up. There's a conversation about who these co-conspirators could be and should they actually face any consequences. You see, the problem that everyone here faces is that there's a lot of names, and we've talked about this before, and I'm sure that Gary and Eric have as well, where there's a lot of people and a lot of names who were in the circle of Jeffrey Epstein that may have flown on the Lolita Express, but they were just catching a ride. And some of these co-conspirators, and we're going to go into some detail coming up, some of these co-conspirators, they may have been these girls who were victimized, and then they were told to go recruit other girls. So are they victims or are they co-conspirators? And if they're victims, but they recruited other girls, well, then should they be charged with whatever that charge would be? Because if they recruited girls, then that is against the law. But if they were doing it under duress, you see where I'm going with all this? Great audio, great conversation coming up next on Red Eye Radio.
This holiday season, give the gift of the Red Eye Radio app. Merry Christmas from Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
Hey, by the way, that app is free. Just so you know, I downloaded it actually the other day. It works great. And the thing I love about the app, and this I say the same thing about my morning show in Nashville, Tennessee. thing about the app is for Red Eye Radio, you can listen to the show anytime. So, and as I've often said, sometimes my show makes more sense the second time you hear it. So we're talking about the latest Epstein files drop, and I've talked a little bit about what was in it. You got the Bill Clinton photos all over the place. You also have some photos of Donald Trump. There's no smoking gun related to Bill Clinton or clearly Donald Trump. And as I said in the previous segment, there's more evidence that Donald Trump did not do anything than he did anything. There's absolutely zero evidence that Donald Trump, partook in anything untoward with these young girls. There just isn't. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump, he was one of the only people, you probably know this, but Donald Trump was one of the only people that immediately cooperated with the investigation when the investigation began. So there's also that part. But there's like 10 co-conspirators that were identified back in 2019. The files have been dropped. And now the question is, and everybody wants to know, who are those co-conspirators, to Jeffrey Epstein? This was a big discussion on CNN just a couple of hours ago. The host is named Alex Michelson. Listen.
Jacob, there is going to be public pressure to name those possible co-conspirators. That a lot of people were surprised to hear about this concept of co-conspirators. The DOJ previously said there wasn't enough evidence to charge them. Will this force the DOJ to look at those cases again?
Yeah, this is a guy named Jacob Transian, and he is a legal analyst with Business Insider.
Yeah, so, as your audience knows, the only other person charged in this sex trafficking conspiracy was Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. We also know that there were some victims who are also recruiters for other women, and their status is a bit more confusing, right? Should they be considered victims? Should they be considered co-conspirators? Are they a bit of both? Can you really charge someone like that with a crime? And I think one of the issues here is that email that we saw is heavily redacted. And, are they redacted because these are victims that are redacted, or is it just sort of part of the over-redaction that the DOJ is doing here? They're redacting things that really ought not to be redacted, and we just have no sense of what's going on with this email because we can't really trust the redaction process.
So there's a lot of redacting that is going on. But he does bring up that point, which I was making earlier. With the Epstein case, you had some of the victims, and they ended up recruiting other girls. Are they victims or are they co-conspirators? I believe that these girls recruited other girls under duress. But it is an interesting question, and it also goes back to what has been a big topic of conversation. These co-conspirators. If there was not enough evidence to charge them initially, then should their names be released and their reputations destroyed? I want you to think about this because it's a tough one. Let's say you were part of Jeffrey Epstein's circle. Because, he was one of these, Jeffrey Epstein was one of these people that liked to collect people, right? And so he wanted to, this is why he had it in for Donald Trump. Trump basically banned him from Mar-a-Lago once he found out all of the weirdness that was Jeffrey Epstein and the whole thing with young girls. So Epstein got really angry. He got really hurt because part of his deal was he liked being in Donald Trump's orbit. And so then he really had it out for Donald Trump. And also remember, and I'm sure Gary and Eric spoke about this, I think maybe I did when I was filling in a while ago. But also don't forget that Jeffrey Epstein was trying to peddle nasty stories about Donald Trump to the media. So that is also part of this conversation. But anyway, so if you were maybe an acquaintance of Jeffrey Epstein, and you end up because, you were on a flight log or you were there when a certain conversation took place, whatever. And you were named as a co-conspirator, but then there really wasn't any concrete evidence to charge you. Well, now, here you are years later, and your name might be thrown out there, and your reputation will be destroyed. Perhaps your career will be destroyed. So that this is a sticky wicket. This is a tough question. There's another one. And by the way, just so you know, I'm all for getting the information out there. But remember that innocent people could end up being destroyed if they actually didn't do anything wrong. So there's some gray area here. And I know that that's not a popular thing to say when we're talking about the Epstein files, but it is true. I have interviewed, I probably 10 to 12 congressmen and senators across the country. And a lot of them will say the same thing, which is you don't want innocent people to be wrapped up in this. Dave Ehrenberg is the former state attorney for Palm Beach, Florida, and he was talking about these co-conspirators as well. This was on CNN just a few hours ago.
Yeah, and Dave, why were the cases against these co-conspirators not pursued, both here and in Epstein's 2007 Florida case?
That's the big question, Alex. You know, the Department of Justice back earlier this year in July said that they did not have any evidence that could predicate an investigation against alleged co-conspirators. And that's why it came as a surprise to a lot of us when we saw that the DOJ for years have had evidence against co-conspirators. In fact, that email you mentioned 10 potential co-conspirators. They black out the names, but there are 3 individuals whose names are mentioned, and that's Leslie Wexner, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jean-Luc Brunel, who died in a French prison of suicide. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. So I understand why those 2 names are mentioned. Why was Leslie Wexner's name left unredacted while other names were redacted? Why is Bill Clinton's picture all over the files while others who supposedly were involved with this are redacted? So there are so many questions. It seems political on one end. It seems sloppy on the other. We don't know. So hopefully we'll continue to get some answers.
Yeah, really interesting. And there's a lot to say about who should be included and who should not. This guy, Leslie Wexner, by the way, you heard him talking about Leslie Wexner. His most controversial association was with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, we all know Epstein died in 2019. But Wexner, according to Grok, just very surface level here, an American billionaire businessman, 1937, Dayton, Ohio. He founded the retail empire that became L Brands, now Bath and Body Works Incorporated. And he started the Limited in 1963 and Abercrombie and Fitch and others. So, this was a guy who was, a millionaire. Epstein was Wexner's personal financial manager from the late 1980s until around 2007, and on it goes. And so, you understand why his name is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know anything else about this guy, Wexner. But the bottom line with all of this is that there is some gray area, and there's still a lot of redactions, and a lot of people are really angry about the redactions. Here's more.
Dave, so much of what's in these files really is from secondhand sources. Would any of this be admissible in a court of law?
Great question.
There's so much hearsay here. So you would need firsthand testimony. Victims, the survivors. The survivors are ready to speak out. They want to give the names, but they're worried that if they do, they could be hit with massive civil defamation lawsuits. They don't have the money to go against some of these very powerful, very wealthy individuals. So they're depending on the government to do it for them, to mention the names for them so they don't have to get sued. And then perhaps we could see some justice. But the administration is very careful about revealing any names. They don't want to cast aspersions over people who have never been charged with a crime and may never be charged. But at the same time, a lack of transparency is keeping this controversy alive and growing, and the public is never going to be satisfied until all the files are released, and includes the names of the alleged co-conspirators.
All right, so sticky wicket for the Department of Justice. George is called in. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. George, thanks for calling in. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm all right.
I hear you filling quite a bit. I have heard you a number of times on this show, and I appreciate it when you do. I called regarding this thing where Kamala Harris is making reference that it's a sexist or whatever, making criticism of her laugh. Let me tell you that, pure and simple, it's real easy. There are a lot of us out here. I mean, I'm only speaking for myself. That pure and simple think she's plain stupid. I mean, one thing that she did do successfully, there were many times where she actually made Biden look good. I mean, the woman is absolutely, in my opinion, brain dead. If Cotton were brains, she'd have about enough brains to Tampax a flea. She's stupid. So no matter what, somebody needs to get this message through to her that a lot of us out here, it's not just her cackle. I mean, we think that she's totally brain dead. I mean, what else can I say?
Well, and George, you bring up some great points, and I'm going to take this a little bit further because, you say that Kamala Harris is brain dead. I would actually agree with you. She's not very smart, but this is a woman who was a district attorney for San Francisco. She was an attorney general for the state of California. She was a senator, and then she was a vice president. But the amazing thing is, I do believe, and I know that you would agree with me too, George from Atlantic City. You would agree that there's people that are book smart, and then there are people that just don't have a lick of common sense. I think that Kamala Harris, she's probably book smart. I don't know if she's a quality lawyer or not. It doesn't sound like she is a quality lawyer, and it does sound like, if you look back on her time as a San Francisco district attorney, there's some corruption there, and there were some very bad decisions made when she was in the district attorney's office. I don't have time to get into it all now. Maybe I'll do it next week. But I think that she was able to pass the bar and, get jobs as an attorney, and she was able to, run decent campaigns to become a DA and a senator and an attorney general and so forth. But I think you're right. When it comes to just like common sense and how to relate to people, she doesn't put her best foot forward. And I think, let me ask you this, George. Do you hope, I did this on my local show in Nashville and the phones exploded. Do you hope that she runs for president again, or do you hope that she just, goes away? Because there's a lot of people that would say, oh, please, Kamala Harris, run again. It's an easy win for the right.
If she wants to run again, God bless her, because all that she's going to do is show the world again just how stupid she is. She's not going to get any brighter. So whatever it is, Peter principle that, you rise to the top or whatever, it's like for whatever reason it is that she is what she is, there are many of us that pure and simple think that she's brain dead. I mean, what else can I say?
All right. Well, George, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. And yeah, I would agree with you. I would give her just a bit more grace. Here's what I would say. I would say that she is book smart. She was able to pass the bar. She's, not something I could do. However, I think that her problem is that she is socially awkward and she thinks that she has a sense of humor when she really doesn't. And her biggest flaw is that she simply is unable to connect with people. 866-90 Red Eye will return next.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
Eight 866-90 Red Eye is the phone number. I know that Gary and Eric said it last night, but I'll say it for them this morning and for me and everybody at Red Eye Radio. Merry Christmas to you, and hope you have a great time with friends and family. And we will be back live on the morning of the 26th. So looking forward already to that broadcast. And if you'd like to learn more about me, fill-in host here, You can find me on X and on Facebook at Dan Mandis Show. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That is from 6 to 10 Eastern Time, 5 to 9 Central. And you can find that on all of the streaming apps. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook as well if you like to watch a radio show in action. I've never understood it, but people watch. You can find us again on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Appreciate you listening to Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.